We're so honored to be interviewing Dr. Carla Marie Manly, who is here to give us some expert tips about stress management. Hi, Dr. Carla Marie. As a psychologist, do you have any tips on what to do to prevent burnout, first as a working parent and second as a stay-at-home parent, in order to keep our relationship at home harmonious?
Women, given the historical trend of
Mm-mm,
women taking care of all of the elements of the home environment, right?
mm-mm,
Everything from raising the children to nurturing them,
mm-mm,
um, helping with homework,
mm-mm,
and also all of the household duties, shopping, cooking,
mm-mm.
um, creating meals. So
Yes.
women tend to continue to do all of those activities,
Mm-mm.
even when they're working outside the home.
Yes.
So that's the historical background of it, but we do have this new trend
Mm-mm.
coming in where men are aware that they too, when they have a wife that's working, or even if she's working within the home,
Yes.
that they come home and instead of putting their feet up and sitting on the couch, they say, "Hey, sweetheart, how could I help you?" So
Yeah.
that part is where teamwork comes in,
Mm-mm.
and learning what your needs are, not
Mm-mm.
feeling guilty about taking a time out, whether
Mm-mm.
that time out is a walk around the block,
Mm-mm.
um, giving yourself, or going for a pedicure or a manicure, going to a yoga class, meditating, praying, whatever you need to do to get balance.
Mm-mm. 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 That's
And
true.
this piece, Eleanor, is really important. Many people confuse that type of time out,
Mm-mm.
which is self-care. They
Mm-mm.
confuse that with being selfish,
Mm-mm.
and it's actually not at all selfish.
Mm-mm.
It's the opposite.
Mm-mm.
Good self-care, setting aside time to refresh, to rest, to revitalize, is actually essential
Mm-mm.
in order to be able to take care of yourself, your children, your partner,
Mm-mm.
because if you don't take a time out, then you could hurt yourself physically by becoming worn down and exhausted. Of course, you're hurting yourself mentally and
Mm-mm.
emotionally by not allowing um, time to rest, relax. And then somebody who's overworked and overstressed might be more prone to depression,
Mm-mm.
anxiety,
Mm-mm.
to snapping in
Yes.
anger or frustration.
Yes.
So, again, good self care that allows that time,
Mm-mm.
whatever that individual needs, that time for healing and
Mm-mm.
rejuvenation, it's really essential.
Mm-mm.
Is
Absolutely.
that helpful?
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Carla Marie, lots of people nowadays find trouble falling asleep. What are your tips for relaxing the body and mind before going to bed?
That's one of my favorite topics, sleep, because research continues to show that adults need a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Yet there's an epidemic around the world, given the nature of technology and our busy schedules, where people are often living on 5, 6 hours of sleep a
Mhm,
night, sometimes even less than that.
mhm,
And so realizing that sleep is a necessity. That's the first thing. It's not an option, it's a necessity.
mhm,
And when we take the sleep seriously for ourselves and for our children,
mhm.
then we can look at how important it is to have what I call sleep hygiene.
Sleep
And
hygiene.
sleep hygiene
Mhm,
is that idea that just as we give ourselves breakfast, lunch, dinner,
mhm,
um, just as we give ourselves the opportunity to exercise,
mhm,
brush our teeth, that sort of
mhm,
thing, there's also a necessary ritual for sleep.
mhm,
And people often simply don't realize that. They don't realize how important it is to, just as when we have children, right? We
mhm,
bathe
mhm,
them, we turn down the lights, we tuck them in, we give them kisses, all of that after we wash them and brush their teeth. We give them that ritual, that sense, it's time to wind down and get ready for sleep.
yeah,
Adults need that very same thing, and
mhm,
we often don't do that. So, what I recommend for people, let's say your bedtime is 10 o'clock at night,
mhm, mhm,
and I know on a personal level, my bedtime is 10. And
mhm,
if I don't get to sleep at 10, and this is true for many people,
mhm,
the sleep system gets out of whack. So if we put it off till 10:30 or 10:45, the body's actually trying to stay awake, thinking it has to go again. And then when it's time to wake up at 6, your inner clock is still trying to get up at 6, but you've been deprived of sleep. So what I tell people is, just as you would do for a young child, do the same thing for teenagers and for your adult self. Give yourself a bedtime that makes sense to you, like 10, 11, whatever that time is, and then begin, whatever that time is, begin to wind down 2 hours before that time. 2 hours, Eleanor, of having the lights lower, turning off technology, not using your cell phone or your computer. Ideally, if you're watching TV, listening to shows that aren't that don't create reactions in your body and your mind, shows that are violent or triggering in nature. All of this will allow your body and your mind to begin to work toward a calm inner sense that will allow sleep, right? And so when we do that, we're preparing the body for a night of restorative sleep. The other things that you can do during that time period are really calming daily tasks, such as slowly preparing lunches for the next day, doing clutter clearing, making notes for the next day that allow you to have better sleep. So if you have a list for the next day, you're less prone to wake up with that thought of, oh, I forgot to do this, or I forgot to do that. And so using that time, again, maybe an evening meditation, or reading to your children, reading to your partner. The other thing that I recommend is that people have a ritual for preparing for bed. Flossing teeth, brushing, then washing your face. If you want to eat, if it's necessary for you to eat close to bedtime, right? That's another important thing.
Yes.
For most of us, it's important to stop eating several hours before bedtime. Some people feel the need, perhaps they have a high metabolism, to have a nighttime snack. So if you're having an evening snack, try to avoid sugary foods, caffeinated products. Instead, maybe have a handful of unsalted nuts, a cup of warm applesauce with some cinnamon on top if you need a little bit of sugar, but being really careful not to ingest high carb foods, high sugary foods, especially refined carbs. All of that will allow you to sleep more restfully.
Yes. Very true, very true. Can you please give us some tips on the best thing to do when you feel so overwhelmed about life, losing clarity, and you feel that you need to do something to restore your sense of purpose and balance?
That's a really good point again, Eleanor. And sometimes we get, again, it goes back to how busy we are. And when we're either working mothers who work within the home with the children, or working outside the home, or for fathers, it's the same thing. We get so busy tending to the day-to-day tasks, all of the things we have to do to pay the bills and take care of the kids, that it's easy for a sense of overwhelm to sneak up on us. And all of a sudden, we're just feeling confused and out of sync, and there's too much on our plates. So again, going back to the earlier part of the interview, first trying to notice before that overwhelm hits. But sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes it just sneaks up seemingly out of nowhere. And when that happens, taking that message seriously, that message it's coming from the body and the mind, right? And the spirit saying, wait, this is too much for me. It's not healthy. And when we listen to that message, if we're, in a marriage or with a partner, talking first to our partner and saying, hey, I need your help here. I really need you to work with me. I'm getting out of whack. I'm overloaded, right?
Yes.
And then your partner may come back and say, me too. That's exactly what I'm doing. And then using that as an opportunity, never to blame each other, that you should have, or I told you so, but instead saying, what can we do as partners to
Mm-mm.
address this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for us to get a babysitter and go away for a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's time for us to have a real at-home weekend to recalibrate and, say no to invitations so that we can be at home and recharge. But really working to as partners. And again, if you're not in a partnership, working with yourself and your support system to take that message of overwhelm seriously
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't put you into a place of severe anxiety or depression. And so again, I really look, Eleanor, at it as a process of learning to listen to the messages from your body and your mind and
Mm-hmm.
taking them seriously, addressing them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Lastly, Dr. Carla Marie, would you please tell us a bit about your upcoming book, Joy from Fear?
Oh, thank you, Eleanor. Joy from Fear it's a beautiful book. It's coming out in April from Familius Publishing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a wonderful book
Mm-hmm.
that can either be used as a tool toward self-therapy if somebody is strong and aware enough to use it that way.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it might be a supplement to therapy. For others, it might be used simply as a handbook
Mm-hmm.
for self-awareness,
Yeah.
for creating better relationships
Mm-hmm.
in the family with one's partner.
Mm-hmm.
So I really worked within that book to
Mm-hmm.
cover topics ranging from trauma, anxiety, and depression to more commonplace issues such as how to get technology in a balanced place in your life,
Mm-hmm.
how to address sleep issues,
Mm-hmm.
exercise issues, health issues. And so you might wonder about where does the title come
Mm-mm.
from, Joy from
Yes,
Fear?
yes.
Well, what I realized when I was working on getting my doctorate in psychology,
Mm-mm.
because that's built on degrees before that, but much of my learning happened during that program. And what I realized is that in my own life, I had allowed unconsciously, I had allowed fear to keep me stuck
Mm-mm.
patterns and relationships that simply weren't optimal for me. I wasn't thriving. I
Mm-mm.
was existing, I was surviving, but I wasn't thriving.
Mm-mm.
And I always thought I was very strong and spunky and powerful. I
Mm-mm.
wouldn't have believed that it was fear holding me back.
Mm-mm.
And so, in the course of my research, I realized that indeed it is fear that often immobilizes us in life, that holds us back from the life we want. And when we learn not to ignore fear or not to conquer fear, but to embrace fear, to learn what it's trying to tell us, to listen to its messages, then we can use fear, make it our friend, make it our ally, and then create the joy that's just waiting to be nurtured and brought to a blossoming level in our lives. And so that's what I believe that we can each do. And I think that Joy from Fear absolutely gives the tools to readers to help them create that same sort of joy and fulfillment in their own lives.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Carla Marie Manly, for taking this interview, and we wish you the best of luck in your upcoming book launch.